New information in the trials for the 9/11 suspects at Guantanamo Bay. Fox News obtaining a letter by the Defense Department sent to the families of 9/11 victims stating there is still no timetable for a trial for some of the most notorious suspects being held at Gitmo 10 years after the worst terrorist attack on American soil. Let's bring in Charles Cully Stimson. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainees, a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us.
Happy to be with you.
This is obviously very frustrating for so many people whose lives were devastated by this, especially when you look at the sequence of events. And let's put it up on the screen. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed captured in Pakistan in 2003. At a military hearing in 2007, 4 years ago, he confessed to planning the 9/11 attacks. December 2008 informs the judge he wants to plead guilty. When Eric Holder became the Attorney General, the case was dismissed, transferred to civilian courts in the U.S. He later reversed himself, Holder did, and now it's back at a military commission. Look, shouldn't this case have been resolved a long time ago?
Heck yeah. And I think everyone appreciates the frustration of not only the victims of 9/11, the families directly impacted, but the Americans who still are concerned about justice for the 9/11 attacks. The fact has been 3 steps back, 1 step forward all along, and the Justice Department, in their defense, and I usually don't defend this Justice Department very often, doesn't have that much control over the Commission's process because the Commission's process is independent somewhat of the Justice Department.
Yeah, but they had a guilty plea at one point in time. I mean, literally a couple of weeks away from a formal guilty plea being entered. And then, you know, there's a change in administration. So, I mean, if you had to place some responsibility somewhere, would it be this current administration?
I absolutely think that this administration bears some blame. And the guilty plea that KSM wanted to enter was he wanted to enter a plea of guilty. And the question on the table was, at the time, the rules as written, can you plead guilty to a death-eligible offense? And the rules that Congress passed weren't clear about that. They're still not clear about that. The administration knew about that coming in. They've done nothing to clarify that. And only now do we have language in the National Defense Authorization Act that clarifies that, that says you can plead guilty to a death-eligible offense.
But November 18th, 2009, I looked it up again today and watched the president predict not only a conviction for KSM, but it was also going to be the death penalty. I mean,
yeah,
and now we're arguing about the death penalty?
Yeah, that's problematic, as you know, because the Commander-in-Chief ultimately owns commissions, and he would have to sign the death warrant were KSM or anyone else sentenced to death. But look, you know, I think something smart is happening here. What is happening now is the person who owns commissions, the convening authority, is considering the defense counsel's request to take death off the table in the 9/11 case, and also, much like a DA would if you were an elected DA, considering allowing for them to get mitigation experts up front if there's a sentencing case. So he's taking appellate issue off the table up front. And so, although it's going to take longer, I think in the end, if there's a conviction, and I certainly hope if they're found guilty, that they're guilty, if they're found guilty by the members, appellate issues will be less than if these things weren't taken care of now.
Cully Stimson, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay.